Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar here from Infoblox, NIOS 8.4, Modernizing Core Network Services. So I'm David Beneski. I work in product marketing here at Infoblox. I'll be presenting part of this webinar, and I am joined by Dave Signore. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. This is Dave Signore. I'm a senior director in the product management group at Infoblox. I own the, if you're an existing customer, I own the NIOS DDI product line as well as NetMRI. And NIOS DDI also includes the DNS traffic controller, hybrid cloud, network insight discovery. If you're a Microsoft customer or Microsoft overlay, those are the sub-products that fall under NIOS DDI.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And more important, thanks to the attendees for coming to this webinar. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to hear what we've got to tell you, and specifically hearing more about this latest announcement regarding NIOS, the newest release of NIOS, which is, again, 8.4. So we have a lot of content here, including a product demonstration, which I think will be pretty interesting. So we have a lot of content, but mercifully very few slides. What we're going to do here is we'll have just a very fast introduction to Infoblox for those of you who are not familiar with the company. And then we'll go through the actual meat and potatoes. So what is new in NIOS 8.4? There is, again, a demonstration weaved right in. And as I mentioned before, we will have a Q&A session at the end. But again, as we go, if you see something that you have a question on or think of something, just input it through the little Q&A widget, and it will be collected. So who we are, we are the leader. Infoblox is the market technology leader in DNS, DHCP, and IP address management, or DDI. And we do have as our mantra, delivering next-level networking, security, reliability, and automation through our DDI and related services. If you didn't know, we have over 8,000 customers, and about 70% of the Fortune 500 counts Infoblox as one of their vendors. So if you are a Infoblox customer or considering us, you'll be a pretty good company. And now, just as a little philosophical note, this webinar is about NIOS. What is our strategy? Our strategy for NIOS, which is the operating system, if you're unfamiliar, for our services. The strategy is to continuously invest in providing really the best core DDI services with the aim of making networks more capable, more efficient, and more secure. And I guess the most operative words here are continuously invest. We are continuously improving on NIOS 8.4. And that investment is manifested in new releases such as this one, 8.4. And the purpose of this webinar is to inform you about the benefits in each release, the value, and what the features that support those benefits are.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so I'm going to cover the main features in the product, the feature themes. This is NIOS 8.4 that we're talking about here. We GA'd it on March 4th. We go through a couple-month period where we do a controlled availability, which we do in each release. So if you're a customer and you're interested in that in the next release, 8.5, then reach out to your account rep and let them know. The feature themes that I've categorized the features under are cloud readiness and automation, which will cover deployment options into public and private cloud. NIOS security enhancements, which we're always adding enhancements for. Greater ease of management, which is primarily around a new UI skin, and VLAN management, which we've added, which is going to be the focus of the demo. Expanded infrastructure visibility, right? It's one of the key differentiators that we talk about, and the fact that we're not just tracking your IP address management, but we're discovering and validating it and giving it visibility both on the network. Ensuring protocol currency, our DNS DHCP, we always need to make sure that we're up to date with the latest versions and enhancements to protocol support. And then just in general, obviously, as Dave mentioned, we have a huge customer base. We take in enhancements all the time. There's over 50 enhancements, even if they're just smaller requests, are addressed in this product as well. We've already had a question come in on can you see all the release features? They are in the release notes if you're an existing customer, but we can make that available in the response to this webinar also to all the attendees. All right, so let me get into each one of these. First, I'm going to start with cloud readiness and automation. One of the larger features that was added in 8.4 is support for Google Cloud support. So this is integration with GCP. It's very similar to the support that we already have today for AWS and Azure. And what it does is basically delivering your enterprise-grade external and/or internal DNS, IP address management with Google Cloud Platform, similar to what, as I mentioned a second ago, with Azure and AWS. So this simply means that now you can integrate, have your grid on-premise and have it extended out to a GCP, Azure, AWS platform environment. Even the whole grid can be deployed in the public cloud environment, or you can split it up. So there's a variety of use cases there. You may want to run the whole thing with the grid master on-prem, with having your DDI services in the cloud. But you may even want to put your grid master candidate, the GMC, which is our backup server for disaster recovery redundancy, in the cloud. But it basically gives you a seamless view regardless of where your workloads are. Even if you have them spread across 2 different public cloud vendors, we see a few folks doing that for redundancy and while they're testing things out. So you get fault tolerance, you get pure and full visibility. Part of that visibility is covered by the fact that we do support discovery of everything that's out there. So the virtual networks, the VM workloads, the host names, all those are discovered and brought into IPAM also, exactly like we discover from AWS, from Azure, from a VMware environment, from OpenStack, or in an on-prem router switch or SDN environment, right? So again, this helps you to quickly provision resources regardless of where they are, public or private. Gives you the choice to choose among whatever cloud provider you wish to choose from. But the visibility is important because obviously, as you do more and more automation, and we're seeing more and more of this in the customer base, if you're going to automate with orchestration of getting the next IP address to provision or to deprovision or to automate the setting of DNS when you're spinning up a new workload, your IP address state has to be accurate, which is why the discovery is so important. So basically with this is that we've added, on top of AWS and Azure, we support Google. And not just visibility, but our appliances can be deployed right into GCP, right, out of the marketplace. Also, some smaller things that are cloud and automation related is we do have a CP or cloud platform appliance. It's a virtual only appliance that we just revved up to our latest release. One of the unique things in the CP appliance is that you can make API calls directly to it without having to go all the way to use the REST API back to the grid master. So it gives you survivability. If you distribute your grid CP in different places, you can keep the API orchestration going in the remote location. Also, some more medium-sized things is the outbound API. So we have a REST API for inbound. We also have an outbound API that can be triggered by a wide variety of actions. That outbound API comes with the ecosystem license in the product. But we made some enhancements to that where you can outbound send messages to the syslog endpoint. We've added some additional triggers to it, so you can trigger an outbound API call if there's updates to a DNS zone or record. And then we made some enhancements with our out-of-the-box integration with McAfee DXL. That outbound API, we have a lot of out-of-the-box integrations that are already put together today. Our partners or you can build your own as well. But yeah, check out the website because we've got integrations using Qualys to Tenable to Rapid7, Cisco ICE, which I'll talk more about in a minute. Also, and this is due to customer request, our audit log is now has a lot more detailed information about API calls. So since a lot more folks are using the API, we're adding more audit log information to that. We just revved our orchestration IPAM plugin that we have with VMware VRA. We have integration with a wide variety of orchestrators, but VMware VRA is quite a popular one. So we certified the latest version of that, which I think was 7.4. We also made some tweaks to it based on customer requests so that you could specify, for instance, the DNS domain that's being set on a VM versus just taking the default that comes out of IPAM for that. We also, if you didn't know, we have an out-of-the-box integration with Cisco ICE PX Grid, Cisco's latest and greatest network access control system. Basically, we subscribe to data from ICE, so we can get your username information, we can get quarantine, we can get TrustSec policy from Cisco ICE. We can also publish out to it data that we've discovered, so DHCP fingerprint data, straight up discovery data of the types of devices we've discovered, the operating systems models, DHCP lease, that sort of thing. And so basically every time Cisco revs ICE, we make sure that we validate. So we already had that integration. This is just to validate that we're using, that we work with the latest and greatest Cisco ICE version. Okay. All right, moving to NIOS security enhancement. When I say NIOS security, I'm not talking necessarily about DNS security. That's a whole separate product line, although it's supported by this product as well. This is more of like enhancements to the system security. And probably the biggest thing that we added here was support for SAML 2.0. So what this does is that you can authenticate out to a third-party identity provider. A very common one that you probably heard of is Okta, right? So this permits you basically single sign-on. So if you have an Okta tile for Infoblox, and once you're in through your identity provider credentials, then you have access into Infoblox. So a lot of customers were using it. A lot of them banged on it pretty hard during control availability. You can see some examples of some other SSO identity providers you can connect to. But obviously this has the advantage of additional security, reducing the amount of times your users have to log in, streamlines the access administration because we're taking care of underlying assignments to being in the right security group and automatically adding user accounts if they get through the SSO. There's options for that as well. And then obviously if you're using two-factor authentication with your identity provider, then you get that too with the Infoblox login. All right. So that was a key feature in the system security area. Another one, and a lot of these are direct customer requests, but again, security is a key theme for us every time we're budgeting what we're going to work on for the product. But a number of password and account management things. So you can you've always been able to set password expiry by user account. Now you can do it by user group. You optionally can disallow concurrent logins. You optionally can lock out accounts after they've failed to log in X times. You can restrict the use optionally of the previous X passwords for your users. And you can automatically disable users after they haven't been active for X number of days, right? We did update to a later version of the OpenSSH that we use internally to the product for SCP, SSH, HTTPS connections. We also added support for HSTS, which is HTTP strict transport security, that can basically enforce only HTTPS type of connectivity to us if you wish. We added support for using keys, using ECDSA or RSA algorithms when we do our SCP backup. That's a backup of the database. We have the option to send that to like an SCP server, and before this we required a password, and now you can do it using keys. And then some of our customers had a requirement that TCP timestamps were considered vulnerable, right? That's just basically logs of the activity on the TCP IP stack. We have the option to disable that so it doesn't appear there if you wish to use it, all right? All right, getting into the greater ease of management, main enhancement here, and it's a pretty big one, is VLAN management. I'm gonna demo this for a few minutes. That's basically what the demo consists of. But what this is VLAN management and discovery validation. It allows you to manage your VLAN resources just as you may use the product today to manage your IP address and subnet resources. So you can create VLAN views, you can create VLAN ranges within those views, you can create VLAN objects within those ranges. And then now you can keep track of ones that are assigned to subnets, ones that are not assigned to subnets but are available if you need to assign them out. You can reserve VLANs for later assignment. Then you assign these to subnets or networks, right? And then if you have our discovery engine as well, the discovery engine will display and report the discrepancies, or basically the differences of what you've assigned and what we actually found on the network, right? Which is key, right? If you're only doing the assignment in IPAM and then you pass it off to the network team to go deploy it, you don't really have a way to validate it unless you have something automated like this built into place. So we can, and you'll see this in the demo. If you've assigned a VLAN that we didn't discover, we'll call it out. If we discovered a VLAN that you didn't assign, we'll call it out. If we find a VLAN ID on a subnet that is different than the one you assigned, we'll call it out, that sort of thing. So basically, the value there is it's optimizing and validating your use of your VLAN resources. The other thing we did is a UI reskin. Basically, you'll see this in the demo as well. It's basically just a modernized look and feel. We did not change the underlying navigation much. It just looks a lot cleaner. It matches up with the UI that we use in our other products, and we hope that it improves operating efficiency. It will not require any additional training. If you use the old UI, you'll be able to figure this one out too. It just looks different. And then a seemingly small, but a lot of customers requesting just a warning before you go to delete zones, views, networks, or members to avoid accidental deletion. Sure, if you did delete it, you'd always be able to pull out of the recycle bin, but those were important enough things that it was easy enough for us to put a warning up before we did that. All right. So let me demo. So I'm just going to break out to demo for about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and continue the presentation. Give me a second here. Okay. And let me just check your view to see that you're seeing that. Yeah, it looks like you are. Okay, good. So this is the VLAN management. Now, VLAN management comes with NIOS. So if you're an existing NIOS customer, you just buy this straight up, IPAM, DDI. This comes with it. And you're going to see an additional tab called VLAN. So under data management, where you typically see, IPAM, Superhost, which was added in 8.3, devices if you have the discovery, that sort of thing, you've got a VLAN tab now. And these are broken out into views, ranges, and individual VLAN objects. So over here, for instance, if I was to add a VLAN view, you're simply giving it a name. You're giving it a start and end ID, right? Just numbers for you to track. You can actually pre-create the VLAN objects in the view at VLAN view creation time, and you can give them a VLAN name prefix. So if we go and create 2,000 VLAN objects in a single shot, and you wanted them all to begin with demo or engineering lab or something like that, they could always be given that prefix before the number. You're also allowed to have overlapping VLAN ranges. So as you're managing your ranges for different resources, if you can't plan it exactly on how many VLAN you're going to give to this department versus this department, it allows you to overlap and bleed into them. And you can give a comment to the view as well. Within VLAN views, you can also create VLAN ranges. So this is very similar to the same types of things that we're querying for, but now you're basically just selecting which view you want that range to go in, right? And then you can also create individual VLAN IDs, where you're choosing a view or a VLAN range for it to go in. You're giving it a name. You're giving it an ID. You can also, once you've chosen a view or a range, just get the next available one. So if I had created, for instance, a range from 1 to 100, and I had only defined VLANs below that to 50, and I said get next, it would automatically drop 51 in there for you. You can reserve these, and then they will not appear when a user goes to assign them to a subnet, right? But you will still see it. Or they'll see it, but it'll be marked as reserved. And then these are fields. We polled the customer base on these and said, what are common things that you track with VLANs? And so you can assign a description, a contact, a department, comment, and then you can also add all of your own extensible attributes to those as well. All right. So once you've set that up, for instance, I can drill into a particular view here, and then you can see the way that this one is set up is that these VLANs are within that view, right? But here's a VLAN range that is within that view. So a VLAN doesn't have to be in a range, right? It can just be in a particular view. And if I drill into that, you can see, for instance, that that this VLAN here has been assigned to that particular subnet. Okay. So let me go back out to here. Oh, I wanted to show this. This one's been assigned to multiple VLANs. So we don't restrict you. You can assign multiple VLANs to a subnet, although I know that could be considered a network configuration, or you can assign multiple subnets to a VLAN as well. All right. So let's now go out to show you something else here. If I go into default and default range, you can see here another good display of it, right? So these are the subnets these are assigned. Here's our examples, for instance, of using extensible attributes. So I've created an extensible attribute called VLAN type that I can override to that as well. And if I wanted to edit this VLAN, I could come in here, and within here you would see the range, its name, its ID, right? You could add description, contact, department. You can see which network or networks it's assigned to. I could go over to extensible attributes and see and assign those values also, right? So all this area under VLANs is basically the management of creating those VLANs and defining which range they're in, which view they're in, that sort of thing. Now, if I go over to IPAM, right? Now what you're going to see here is here's an example where we have the subnets, and across the top now, as of 8.3, we used to have VLAN ID, VLAN name, which was basically just the one that we discovered. But we've changed those, and so now what we have here is discovered VLAN ID, discovered VLAN name, and assigned VLAN ID, assigned VLAN name. And so basically now you can make sure that they're the same. One is assignment, and one is actually discovered. Now, we're only going to discover if you have the Network Insight or NetMRI discovery engines, right? So VLAN management is still very useful if you don't have discovery, but there is an additional benefit if you do have it, all right? And so, for instance, if I don't know, here, let me go into one of these, and I'll edit it. And when you go into edit the subnet, there's a new VLAN assignment menu option. And let's just say I wanted to get rid of that for a second. I'm taking that assignment away. Right, so that one is cleared out, right? And then if I wanted to do a reassignment, it's just the opposite. But then you can choose views and the ranges to make that choice. So I'm adding one. Okay, I'm going into choosing a particular view. Right, and then I can select an individual VLAN to assign to it. Add that. And notice the other thing you can do here, which is nice, is where it was saved, is that I could have done get next there as well. So again, even if you don't have a specific one to assign in that VLAN assignment, get next is a possibility. And then we'll just get the next one that's available. And that can be very handy, particularly if you're using automation, because all of these, if you were to make an API call, you're going to, in an automated fashion, using an Ansible playbook or something like that, define a new subnet, new network, and you want to go grab the next available VLAN, that is available via the API as well. Okay. So again, if I go up to show you some examples of what these differences may look like, go into here. Here's some good examples again. So you're seeing if it's yellow, that means that we've discovered it, but you haven't done an assignment yet. If it's white, that means it's discovered and you did an assignment. And then you can see in some cases where there are differences. Now, you don't have to just eyeball these for differences, right? We have some out-of-the-box reports that help you determine that. So, for instance, if I go over to reporting, We use a Splunk engine for our reporting and analytics tool. Right, I'm going to come in here to dashboards, and there's 2 out-of-the-box reports that we include with VLAN management. And one of them is a VLAN inventory. These dashboards generally have some default filters up top, which you can tweak. I'm going to change this to an hour ago. Submit it. And this is basically just a report of inventory of all the VLANs that you have defined in the system, along with these fields which you can all filter on. You can see it's displaying what it's assigned to, description, comment, contact department, whether it's assigned or not, the range and the view that it's in. But here's the report that's pretty nice. Well, that one's nice too, but this one's particularly slick when you're trying to figure out where your conflicts are. If I spell it right. VLAN conflict report. Okay, I'm going to change this to the last hour. All right, so what this is doing is showing you all the conflicts between your assigned VLANs and the ones that we've discovered on the network, and it's giving you the conflict reason over here as well. So for instance, these that come off right off the bat, these are VLANs that we have discovered on the network in these subnets that you have not done an assignment for. So it's just differences in your IPAM view versus what's out there. But you can also choose a conflict reason. I could say, all right, well, let me show the ones that aren't discovered, but that we did assign. So here's assignments that they haven't been seen on the network, right? Here are name conflicts, meaning that these numbers are correct, but we wanted to make the assigned name this, and this is what was actually deployed when network ops put it on the network, right? So the little purpose of that report is not just to show you that it's basically just to show you the difference between the actual network and what's on the and how you have it assigned. All right. Well, within that, that's all I'm going to demo for the VLAN management area. That's the gist of it. This was hit really hard during control availability, but it is a significant new feature in 8.4 that I wanted to show you. You can also see through that whole thing that if you're a current customer, that the UI looks a little different, but that the navigation didn't change too much. All right. Significant change, expanded infrastructure visibility. So if you are an existing NetMRI customer, you may be familiar with the product that we call the Advisor. That Advisor functionality has been added now to DDI NIOS if you have the Network Insight option. And basically what it is Advisor is taking a feed from the device vendor websites directly from Cisco, from Juniper, from Brocade, that sort of thing. Whenever those vendors announce PCerts, CVEs, or end-of-life announcements like this model is going into sales, model is going into support. And what it does is it marries it up with the fact that we've discovered all those things. We know the operating systems and the models and all of the vendors that are on your network. And because we've tied those two things together, we can make it very easy for you to then track and know when you potentially have a PCert violation with your current network infrastructure, right? And as likewise, we're tracking the date it went end of sale, the date when it goes end of support, and the dates when those things were occurred. So it makes it very easy for you to use the UI to check those things. So it's simplifying your network device infrastructure lifecycle management as well as vulnerability management, and that's an add-on called the Advisor. We also enhanced our fingerprinting for end hosts. So we use Nmap within Discovery. However, we were not taking advantage of the capability in Nmap to map an operating system that's on an end host. When I say end host, I mean attached endpoint, not network infrastructure, to bring it into the OS value within IPAM, and it does that now. The other thing in the Network Insight area, this is specific to that product, is we did introduce the 4000 series size of the virtual appliance. So prior to this, we supported the physical appliance, on certain sizes, if you're a customer, 1405, 2205, and the 4005. But on the virtual, we only supported the 1405 and the 2205. Now we're supported on the 4005 levels as well. We have seen a trend for our customer base to deploy more and more virtual. We are moving more and more towards support of virtual appliances. Okay. And this is just kind of a roundup of some things. A lot of these were RFPs, ensuring protocol currency. Obviously, DNS, DHCP is our biggest business. We want to make sure that we're supporting the latest and greatest and most of the options that those protocols support. Infoblox does use ISC bind as our DNS daemon, right? And then we always make sure that we are using the latest extended release from ICS. Their latest extended release is 9.11, so we went to that with this one. And then some of these other ones were more minor. A lot of them were customer RFPs. DHCP v6 rapid commit, that used to be a global setting in the product, and now we allow that option to be set on a per network basis. Support for unknown resource records, basically type quote unquote unknown. An unknown record can have a type assigned to it by an admin now, so you can determine how you want it to be treated. And then we added support for DHCP option 82 sub options 5 and 11, which is basically the link selection and server ID override sub option that allows basically when between a DHCP server and a client, that communication has to go through a relay agent. And this one was kind of a minor, but a number of folks were asking for it, is we were automatically creating the NS record in parent authoritative zones when a subdomain was created below it, and we just toggle that to make it optional as to how you set that. We're always adding a number of protocol concurrency enhancements to the product. Okay, so that is a summary of the full features. We did have a couple questions on the release notes, so you can see all of the features. I mean, I didn't include all of some of the more minor RFPs that went in. But I'm going to pass this back to Dave Vineski to finish this up, and then we can start some Q&A.
Thank you, Dave. Fantastic presentation. You've covered a lot of ground there. And thank you to the audience. We sometimes do webinars and we get very few questions, which makes us feel a little forlorn. That was not the case here. We got a lot of good questions. And while I just reviewed the next steps, I'm going to give Dave Signore a chance to take a glance at some of the questions and prepare his thoughts. I'll say in advance, based on what I saw, we'll be able to answer several questions here, maybe many, but those that we cannot answer while we're on this in this event, we will get back to the person who submitted the question with an answer. So. That's how we handle this. So just to kind of a capstone on what Dave talked about, I hope you kind of got the feeling for what we're trying to do here. In some ways, we try to anticipate the market needs and get ahead of the curve and offer interesting and important new functionality like Google Cloud support. And then we also react to what you, our customers, ask for. These are twin needs, and we try to address them both. And a lot of what you saw was a direct response to requests from people like you. So thanks for giving that input. You do help drive what we do. If you want to find out more, one thing you can do at a very high level, you can go to our public website and you can download the NIOS 8.4 solution overview. It's a two-page document. Just gives you the tips of the ways on what's in 8.4. A lot less detail than what you saw here. If you want, though, all the details, there is a document, and Dave mentioned it. It is the NIOS 8.4 release notes. If you want a copy of those, I suggest you put your sales rep or channel rep or reseller work and ask them to give you the NIOS 8.4 release notes. It is about a 50-page document, if memory serves, and it tells you all of the interesting details. And with that, let me just move along here to a nice little question slide. So we have a number of questions, and in the queue?
I can take a stab at some of these, Dave.
Go for it.
Yeah,
I will monitor what's answered and not.
Sure. So as Dave and Esky mentioned, we're going to send a reply out to all these, right? So if we miss some of these, we'll reply, because I can see a couple of these I'm going to have to look into. But let me take a whack at a few of them. Do I need Infoblox Discovery for VLAN management? No, you do not. So the VLAN management capability does not require the discovery, which is Network Insight or NetMRI. All the resource management, assignment of VLANs to subnets from that tab can be done without discovery. However, if you do not have discovery, right, we are not going to be populating that field that says discovered VLAN ID, and then obviously you won't be able to run a conflict report. So you just get a little bit more added functionality on the discovery validation if you have discovery, but it's not required for the VLAN management capability. That just comes with NIOS. Another question, is vDiscovery part of Google Cloud Platform? Yes, it is. Although I will say that in 8.4, the vDiscovery was just set up at the command line. It wasn't initially in the plan for 8.4. It will be in the UI in 8.4.1, which I think is at the end of April. So, but the bottom line is once you get to 8.4, 8.4.1, vDiscovery is a part of Google Cloud Platform. Now, I should say, too, because I think there's a related question, that vDiscovery works. You don't need an extra license for vDiscovery, right? I mean, you don't have to purchase our CNA license for vDiscovery to work. And we'll discover from VMware, from Azure, from AWS, from Google Cloud Platform. A CNA Cloud Network Automation is what the license is. You do not need that to do the vDiscovery. When you do get the CNA license, you just get the extra cloud tab, and it gives you a nice view of an organization of what we discovered there. Okay. Is Google Cloud now Infoblox's favorite choice among cloud solutions? No. Our goal is to be agnostic, to be Switzerland, right? We're trying to basically support as many and the most commonly used platforms out there. So there's no favorites in that regards. When will NIOS 8.4 be available? If GA happened on March 4th, it is available now. If you're a customer, you can download it from the support site. Is Network Insight a separate product or feature? Yes, Network Insight is a separate product. It's just an additional add-on. It runs as its own appliance in the grid. It can run as a standalone, or it can run in a distributed environment so that there's a consolidator with multiple probes. Very similar, if you're familiar with NetMRI, with how NetMRI is. NetMRI can be standalone, or it can be a operations center with multiple collectors. Okay, let's see. Does Google Cloud support require cloud API license like Azure? Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that. So, I mean, for you to deploy an appliance into Google Cloud, right, you have to have at least an appliance license. You have to purchase the appliance. Now, you are allowed to share licenses. So once you have a license for an appliance, you can run it on-prem in a VMware environment, or you can deploy it in Google Cloud. So you're really just purchasing the appliance there. You are not required to buy anything additional like a CNA license, which basically just puts the cloud tab in the UI. And again, if I don't get these quite right, I'll basically send my email out. You guys can follow up with us, and we can get a little bit more specific on it. Let's see. Will the Perl API continue to be supported? So the Perl API has been deprecated. I think we did that at the end of 8.3. All that means is that new API calls that have come out since 8.3 have not been added to Perl, but we will still support it. So if you're using the Perl API with its existing, as its calls existed at the end of 8.3, yes, it will be supported. But the new API calls, like for instance, the ones that we just added for VLAN management, the REST APIs, don't exist in Perl, right? So we encourage you to move to REST. There also is a Python wrapper for that REST API on GitHub if you're interested in looking into that as well. But the Perl is being deprecated, but it is currently supported. When will ICE 2.6 be supported? Probably in 8.5, which is our next release. I mean, every release we go look at the latest ICE and then we add to it. I want to say that that we're currently looking at 2.5. So I'll go back and take a look at it, make sure that we've got 2.6 covered there as well. We have support for ClearPass and Fortinet. I'm not too familiar with this, but I do know that we have support using the ecosystem license. We'll take that as an action to follow up with you on that. If you go to the community page and you search for Fortinet and ClearPass, you're going to see solutions there. I just don't recall if they were built by our internal technical marketing team or if they were supported by the customer base, but there are integrations to those out there. How can I find all features that integrate with ICE? Just listen to people. Yeah, so the how we integrate with Cisco ICE and PX Grid, there's a deployment guide description that describes all that. So again, at the end of this, I think what I'll do is I'll just answer out with my email, and you can send me a reminder that you want this information. We just need to get it to you. But we basically have a deployment guide that explains exactly what we send to ICE and what we subscribe to from ICE. One thing I didn't mention with ICE that I should have is one of the other integrations we have out of the box is we can send notifications to ICE. And the main use case for that is if, for instance, we pick up like an RPZ hit. It's very common for customers that use our DNS firewall, an RPZ hit, meaning that maybe one of your client workstations downloaded malware and went to reach a blacklisted site. We send a notification to ICE, and then ICE can automatically quarantine that end host. But all of what I just said is described in that guide, so we'll make sure that we get it to you. Let's see. Will NetMRI to DDI sync update the NIOS VLAN? Yes. Yes, the NetMRI sync includes the same VLAN information that Network Insight does. So if you're using NetMRI to sync with DDI for that VLAN data, then that counts as your discovery engine, right? You don't necessarily need Network Insight also. Well, we have a lot of questions. Let's see.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Okay, is Network Insight Advisor a separate product? Yes, Advisor is a separate product. It's a separate product even from Network Insight. So Network Insight is separate from NIOS DDI. Advisor is separate from that. Advisor is only sold as a subscription, and it's check it out. It's relatively reasonably priced. Somebody asked, is Advisor free or is it a license? It's a license and sold as a subscription. Okay. Oh, are grid members available by a cloud vendor, application market, or do we get licenses from Infoblox? We'll follow up with that. I need to get the latest. We do have the Infoblox appliances in the marketplace for some vendors, but not others. Like I don't think we're in the marketplace for Google yet, but we are in the marketplace for Amazon and Azure, but maybe not government. So we're going to have to owe you an answer on that one. But you basically would buy it from the marketplace or download from the marketplace, and then you would show up with your own license, right? So you'd still need to buy the license from us, but you can begin using it right out of the marketplace instead of getting the VM from us. Are newer, higher spec CP appliances available on the respective marketplaces? At the moment, there only should be support for. Yeah, let me double check that. They should be, but we just released them. So the CP V805, V1405, and V2205 just GA'd. I'll have to double check that because they should be out on the marketplace as well. And yes, they do have higher specs than the older CP V800, V1400, and V2200. Can ICE PX Grid push RPZ policies to locally manage RPZ zones? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it does, but we'll double check. I think I have a list of things that we pull from it, but I don't think that the RPZ zones is one of them. We'll double check. Can you set up SSO in Azure AD for Infoblox? So the SSO, Azure AD. Yeah, I'm gonna have to double check that too. We have Active Directory integration into Infoblox. And if you're using the SAML 2.0 for the SSO, then more than likely that will work. But I don't know if we validated that yet. There's two parts to it. I mean, we previously had an Active Directory integration where you connect out, and then the user is using his Active Directory credentials to get into NIOS, and there was synchronization with the groups. I'd have to double check whether Microsoft Active Directory and whether what you're calling Azure Active Directory is the same thing or not, and whether it supports SAML 2.0 or not. I'm not sure about that. SSO, Duo, and Simplify. Again, so the approach we use for SAML 2.0 is all standard. So even though we validated several, there were 4 or 5 that we validated, more than likely it will work for this, but I can add this to the list of identity providers that engineering validates. We did have a few customers in the control availability go and hook up to systems that we hadn't tried ourselves, and it worked just fine. Is there a supported list of 2-factor auth providers? I'm curious about Duo. Yeah, so we'll take that as an action. That's a good question. If we just put a list out of what we recommend, what we validated. Did you add the ability to log out a user? I'm not sure. I'll have to check that. Is FTP an option instead of SCP? I'm assuming you're talking about the backup to remote system. I'll double check that also. Let's see. That one we answered. Infoblox reporting dashboards is new with 8.4, correct? No, the Infoblox reporting dashboards has been out for a while. I don't know when we introduced it, but it's been out for a few years now. So yes, when you saw me move to the reporting dashboards, we're using Splunk behind the scenes, and you can customize your queries, but we do provide a lot of them out of the box. But that's been in the product for quite a while. It's not new. Now, what we do is with each release, like for instance, we added VLAN management, we add more out-of-the-box dashboard reports. Or like Network Insight relatively recently added more discovery reports to the dashboard, like a subnet inventory and an IP address inventory. So we do constantly update which dashboards we add to it, but the reporting and analytics feature has been in the product for a while. How much overhead is the VLAN feature added to the GUI? Nothing that I've seen that's noticeable. And again, that one was hit pretty hard during controlled availability, so I don't think we have an issue there. Extra required license for Network Insight Advisor, yes. When will we see Kia DHCP? I'll take that as an action. I don't think it's in the current plan yet. Yeah, some of these that are really specific, we'll reply in the email. Oh, okay. All right, so this is interesting. So one thing that we didn't cover here was, because it's not customer facing, is that we changed the platform architecture in 8.4. We basically run NIOS in a Docker runtime container. And then some of the individual processes have been containerized, right? That's in 8.4. In 8.5, our next release, we're going to do even more of that. We have, for instance, a DNS forwarding proxy that will forward DNS requests out to our cloud DNS, our SaaS DNS provider. We have something called a cloud data connector that will aggregate and send data over to Splunk or to a syslog server or to our reporting server after it's massaged it a bit, and these things are all being containerized. So over time, we are basically converting everything to microservices. And that's our long-term strategy, right? We want to be able to have the system run very well, run in a wide variety of places, have you run it in a Docker environment if you want. And that began with 8.4. And so it's a big architecture change. However, in 8.4, there's nothing customer-facing about it. But we did change the architecture. Now, with that, obviously, one reason why we went with controlled availability on this one is that's a big change. And so we hit it really hard with all of our performance testing. And so obviously we ran a set of performance tests with deployments on 8.3 versus 8.4, and everything is coming in just as we expected it. So we're not seeing a performance issue with the new containerization at all. And if we had, we would have delayed the release or changed our architecture. And again, that's why we did controlled availability, so that users could run it, hit it hard, come back. We didn't have any issues with performance on that. It was more questions about the new features and a few small defects that were fixed and a couple of enhancements that we added as well. Is there L2 discovery for IPAM, mapping out IPAM IP MAC to device and where it's connected? Yes, that's exactly what Network Insight is. Or as somebody else asked about earlier, you can have NetMRI external to IPAM, which does L2 and L3 discovery and syncs with IPAM. But yes, in IPAM, you can go to the devices folder and you can see all the devices that we discovered, all the end hosts we discovered. We have all the MAC address. We know how everything's connected. So we know which switch port and which wireless access point every end host is attached to. Advisor is not free, it's licensed. I already answered that. The Advisor is a subscription license. Is it possible to configure Infoblox DNS firewall without the reporting component? Sure. Yeah, I mean, reporting is an optional add-on. DFW, DNS firewall, I believe, is free if you don't take our RPZ feeds. Is Network Insight Advisor a separate product? Network Insight is a separate product, and Advisor is a separate product, yes. Okay, I understand that Network Insight is a separate license, but can it run in existing grid appliances, physical, virtual, or this needs to be a separate? If NI needs to be separate, can this be a VM? Okay, so Network Insight runs on its own appliance. However, it is a part of the grid, right, which is very different than if you ran NetMRI as a separate appliance. NetMRI is a totally different system, so when it syncs with IPAM, it's like a third-party product coming in. But Network Insight is a part of the grid. So when you configure your grid, when you use the NIOS UI, everything about Network Insight is within that single UI. So yes, a separate appliance, but it still runs as a grid. And yes, it can run as a physical appliance, 1405, 2205, 4005, or it can run as a virtual appliance, right? In the same categories, V1405, V2205, V4005. And you can have just one, depending on your size, or you can even have separate appliances. One is a consolidator, several is probes. The consolidator is syncing with the grid master, but it's all running as in a single grid. Do we support other NACs like Aruba, ClearPass, or Fortinet? That was asked earlier. We'll double check that, but I think if you went to our community page, you'd see that that's answered. Can a default gateway for a VLAN be documented or discovered in VLAN management? So in the VLAN management area, a lot of the interaction I did with that, we have a customer advisory board, for instance, anybody's interested in, and we had the VLAN management as a big topic during it, where I gathered requirements from the customer base, and I presented back to them what I was going to do. And one of the key topics was all the data that people like to track along with VLAN management. And so that's why we put in static fields for a number of the fields like contact, department. But you can still use extensible attributes and add as many as you want to the VLAN object. So if you do want to track the default gateway that way, you can, right? Yeah, so you could enter the default gateway. A lot of customers use it for the L3 point for that VLAN. You can track it right along with the VLAN object. A tutorial video on reporting and analytics feature would be useful. I think we have one of those. Yeah, so we'll send that out in the response. Oh, DNS firewall RPZ is not free, though it should be since it's been made a function. I'll have to double check that. I thought you could just turn on DNS firewall. I'm not saying with RPZ. Oh no. I am saying with RPZ, but it doesn't include the feed. I thought it was. I'll double check that. Yeah, that's
Dave, I think we have time for one more question.
One more question. All right.
Yeah. Let me suggest may I suggest it?
Sure.
It says, is there a feature to make zone serial numbers based on a date format? For example, YYY and then DDD XXX.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I saw that one and skipped it, Dave. So because I know I'm going to have to research that one. I'm going to have to research that one and send it in the email follow-up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Sorry, I was trying to end on a high note, but I swung and
you thought it was an easy one.
Yeah. Hey, first of all, thank you, Dave, for all the information. That was a great presentation. Thank you to the audience for hanging in, listening, learning, and asking just fantastic questions. Those that we didn't get to, as Dave Signori mentioned, we will respond directly to you. Thank you again for your time. We've come to the end of the session. It makes me think we need to do this one again, almost just based on the kind of interaction and reaction we got here. So with that, thank you all. I believe we sent out email addresses. I know I did. I know Dave did. A copy of this presentation is going to be sent to everyone. And someone did ask if they can get a recording. I'm not sure if that was answered, but we will make that available to you as well, or we will answer that question directly as well. That is, can you get this recording? We are recording it, so I know the resources there. So follow it. So just to kind of finish up, thank you. We run our hour. We appreciate everyone's attendance, and look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. So take care, and we'll see you later.